Welcome to the Multifamily Zone, where business meets family. We explore what the entrepreneur life looks like from the family perspective. Now here are your hosts, Julia and Gino Barbaro.
Hey everyone, this is Julia Barbaro, host of the Multifamily Zone podcast. I am here with the co-founder of Jake and Gino, my husband and co-host, Gino Barbaro.
Hi, Joel.
Hey, Gino.
How you doing?
Good.
We have a power couple on
We
again
do.
this week. This is great. Let me just jump right into it. Ramon Gonzalez has been in real estate since 2004. He owns Summit Home Buyers, and he's going to be joined by his wife, Christy. And together, they have the podcast Both on Board. And I love their mission statement, helping entrepreneurial couples thrive. And we talked about, is God or man or woman. We're not going to get into that on this podcast, okay? I promise. We're going to try to keep it high and tight on, creating the business around the family, around the couple, and how to expand it and how to, prioritize what's more important. Family, business, they're both important, but keeping them on. So without further ado, guys, how you doing?
Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Awesome.
We're excited.
So, Rafe, let's start with you first. How did you get into real estate? Why real estate? And then, how did you guys meet and how did you, start working together?
I was working corporate for General Electric and wasn't happy there. Did that for about 2.5 years on a financial management rotational program in Stanford. So born and raised Miami, Florida boy, and then went up to see snow for the first time when I was 21, 22, and realized that there had to be something better. Started going to a couple of local RIAs, and then met a couple of mentors, and started doing the real estate thing more so out of I think you study a lot of coaching, Gino. I think there's two things that motivate people: desperation or inspiration. And I think desperation is a great starting point, and then it transitions to inspiration, and then that fuels you. So I was just miserable there. Started doing the real estate, and then missed home, and sold the portfolio we had up there. Still stayed with a couple of multifamily, but then came down here, realized I couldn't do it, so started fixing and flipping, buying, holding, wholesaling down here, and then market crashed on us. Then I met my beautiful wife, and then we together started fixing and flipping, buying and holding, wholesaling, and we just sold everything again now in 16, 17, and now we're mostly on the lending side.
So, Christy, you might probably want to kill him, right? I mean, he keeps changing. I mean, let's keep it. Two observations that I need to make, guys. The first thing is you guys have beautiful tans. My tan is pretty good. You guys are from South Florida.
South.
Much better than a Stanford tan. And I want everyone on the podcast to write this down. These are the 3 laws of Ray. I've just got an inspiration. It's desperation, inspiration, and then perspiration. Because you need to put a lot of hard work into what he's done, right? He's reinvented himself 3 times, from going from the GE job to fixing and flipping and wholesaling, selling everything like that, recreating himself, and now going into bigger stuff. So, Christy, can you share your story with us a little bit?
Yeah, and I like to call him, he's just agile. He knows how to bend and stretch and figure things out. So for me, I was a 4th grade teacher for 5 years, and within that time, when we met, we started working together. So I started helping him on the side, and eventually it got to a point where I kind of had to choose what I wanted to do, because I was going a little crazy with teaching all day and then working the real estate side all night. So in 2011, we decided that I was going to retire from teaching to go full-time into our business. So I had a lot to learn, because he had been in real estate since 2004. So it was a really a big learning curve for me. And then we started doing, like he said, wholesaling, fix and flip, buying rentals, managing, all the property management,
hiring, building a business, managing employees.
Yeah, having an office. We did the brick and mortar office thing for like 6 years. So it was just a big learning curve for me, but haven't looked back since. So it's been great.
Tell them what inspired you to go ahead and make that transition. Was it like, what inspired you to go from that teacher job to say, hey, you know what, there's some, I have an expanded desire and I want to go this direction?
I actually don't think I even knew what an entrepreneur was until I met Ray. I think it was just kind of like, my family was very, go to school, get a job, work 30 years, get your retirement, live happily ever after, like that kind of mentality. And I got very deep into personal development once we met and we started doing, Tony Robbins events together, reading lots of books, that kind of thing. So that kind of opened my eyes to another world. It was like, oh, I don't have to work for someone for my entire life to then retire when I'm, 50, 60, 70, whatever. And that wasn't the only path that we needed to take. So it just really opened my eyes to that. And the fact that we were doing it together was kind of, was going to be a hit or miss. Like, is it going to work or are we going to crash and burn? Luckily we didn't or haven't yet. So it just was, being able to do it together has been just, it's been easier because we get to kind of depend on each other and support each other and do it together where, obviously entrepreneur life, things can get hard, things can get messy, and just being able to support each other at that level of don't worry about it, I got this, and vice versa. It just kind of made things a lot easier to transition into this life. So
the definition of an entrepreneur, I have two definitions. I learned this from Rick Sapio. The first one, an entrepreneur is anyone who takes responsibility. That can be a housewife, somebody that stays home.
Yep.
That's an entrepreneur. And the other one is an entrepreneur, somebody who makes enough money to pay for their own mistakes. And I'm sure the four of us on here have done that, right? So you continue to make mistakes. So we have a lot of students in Jake and Gino who are teachers, and they have this mindset that they're around other teachers. They have a ton of limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And once they join Jake and Gino, they're like, no one talks like this. No one's taught me this stuff before. Christy, I want you to share with the listeners what those limiting beliefs are and why they're crazy and why they should really explore them and think outside the box.
Oh, wow. That's a big question. Okay. So
I'm a big idea guy, so I try to throw out those big questions.
I love it. I'm excited to answer this one. I think for me, once we started with the personal development side of things, I started to stick out like a sore thumb in the, teaching environment. Like, people were coming up to me, why are you always so happy? Like, are you always smiling? And it's like, it sounded like that's a bad thing, like, well, I'm happy because I choose to enjoy what I'm doing, even though it's a difficult job, even though the parents are tough, even though the kids are challenging. I chose to enjoy my days no matter what. They used to call me sunshine in my school when
that's
when
such a compliment. You have no idea how much of a compliment that is, because
Yeah.
most people are like,
yeah, most people think that, like, they would come up to me and say, like, in a negative way, like, why are you always so happy? Like, it would annoy them almost. And I mean, my teacher friends, I still speak to them. I went to visit them a few weeks ago. Like, I love them to death. But I think one of the limiting beliefs there is, like, you just got to suck it up. You just got to deal with it. Like, this is the best possible scenario. You get to stay home with
the day, right?
Yeah, like, get through it. Like, you get to leave at 3:00, and they kind of look at those things and they kind of they make it fit. It's like, oh, it's worth it because I have summers off and I get to leave at 3:00 or whatever, is the reason why they became
right?
teaching.
The pension.
Right. Like, for me, I remember I was 5 years in. I'm like, I have to do this for 25 more years. Like,
yes.
So those limiting beliefs of, like, you just get through it, just deal with it, and even within my family, I have a lot of teachers in my family. And to this day, like, it's just, it kind of breaks my heart, not because there's anything wrong with teaching, but it's because if you're going to teach, then be happy doing it, because that affects your kids. It affects your students. It affects your home life. Like, it affects everything. So it's not about what you do, it's how you do it. And if you're not happy doing it, then what's the point? So.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting what you said was that you were the one that was called sunshine in the school district, because that just tells me what type of people you're around. And, and I noticed that coming from a lot of his events, Gino's events, people are super excited. They want to be there. They want to be with you. They want to talk to you. They're excited about everything. They're sharing with your excitement. And when you go to a different, a job or whatever you have, and that excitement's not there and you have it, it does stick out. So it's super interesting to me that you said that. And so that's why I just want to point out that it's so important that we can bring that to people. We could share that with people, or we could be the other person and be the grumpy one. And, and Gino is like that. Okay, he's telling me. Okay, we know.
So she's bringing it up as a sore subject.
I wasn't bringing it up about you. I was thinking other people, actually.
Yeah,
But
it's
like
okay.
you
I was grumpy. You know what I mean? I can own up to that now. I was at the restaurant. I would sit there, and it wasn't the restaurant. It was me. It was the way I was perceiving
Right.
things,
But
and
you
I felt
didn't have to
painful.
do that. That's
You're
my
right.
point.
No, I
Because
agree with you.
Christy
Yes,
didn't do that.
I'm
So
owning
you
up to
had the
it.
choice of
Yes.
being the happy one, being the joyful one.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's what I'm encouraging everyone to be. And that goes in the family life too, doesn't it? Because we're the mom. And if we come home and we're in a bad mood, everyone else is going to come down too. And it's
Yep.
just what it is. You know, the
Absolutely.
husbands too, if they come in a grumpy mood, we can try to, bring them up a little bit, or we could just, let it be grumpy, and that whole night will be grumpy.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So tell me, I love when couples work together, because first of all, it's a huge sacrifice, right? Because a lot of people think, oh my gosh, I could never work. We're going to fight. We're going to argue all the time. And yes, that happens. But I feel like there's more excitement in it. More excitement. There's, we look at the 10% of the day where we did have that argument, and we dwell on that 10%. But that 90% of it was so fun, so rewarding. You got so much done because you know each other so well. So give me an idea of how the two of you actually work together with, like, whatever story you have or something. I want to know the struggles, but I also want to know the excitement.
Well, I think one of the biggest things that we did early on was we really got to know ourselves at a deeper level. So any type of personality test, we do all of it. Like we still take, like I get excited just think, like now I'm into human design. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's like this whole other level of just getting to know yourself and knowing what you're good at and knowing what you're not good at, and working off of your strengths. So for us, really getting clear on, and it worked out. And I think it, for the most part, opposites attract. I don't know if that's 100% across the board, but he's very, networking, and he wants to go talk to the sellers, and he wants to be on the road, and he wants to, be the star of the show for the most part. And like, that's him. I'm the organizer. I'm the planner. I'm the, researcher. I'm the marketing, closing the deal, making sure that the contracts, like I am the detail oriented person. He's like, he makes the mess and then I clean it up. Like, so it works. But we knew that coming in very early on, like what each of us were good at and what each of us needed help in. So I think,
it's early on now, but the first 2 years,
right.
yeah,
That's what I'm saying. That's what I want to hear about. I want to hear about the first 2 years.
Those first 2 years, she'd lock herself up in the bathroom and not talk to me.
He wanted me to cold call, and I was like, what? I cannot do that. Like, that's so rude. How can you just go knock on somebody's door? Like, I was just not into that. But that's what we realized. We were like, okay, what are we really good at? Like throughout those first, obviously.
So time out. You got mad at him because he wanted you to perform a daily business function that an entrepreneur does. If you stop and take a look at that, you shouldn't be getting mad at him. You should be getting mad at the cold calling. And it's funny that you say that you're the detail, you're behind the scenes. Meanwhile, you're the one answering all the questions, and Ray's back there analyzing everything. So I find that to be actually interesting, right? So I think she likes the networking a little bit.
He probably saw in you what you could do. And that's the good thing about working together. Is I know what Gino's capable of, and I will push him if he's slacking off. And same goes the other way. I would never in my life have done a podcast ever in my life.
Either.
Talking in front of people is just, and he's like, no, we're going to do it. And that's it. You can do it. You will do it. And I think that's important, that's even in a relationship as far as a business partner, after the business partner, like the relationship grows, you do know each other, you do know what you're capable of, and that's important.
We've had a lot of amazing couples on, and everyone who's successful has said that they said that we really need to find out what we're good at. I mean, Jay Scott said that on the podcast. The Wilsons said that last week's podcast. They all find that out, what they're really good at, and then they just gravitate towards that. And whatever you two aren't good at, you'll just sub that out and hire that piece out. Ray, what part do you like to do on the business?
I like the risk management. I also like the kind of like talking to, we're doing a lot of the lending. I like the underwriting piece, anything with the money management, but at a high level, not detail. I like networking. I enjoy working on the mindset, networking, anything with a high level strategy, just not the execution day to day. Like one of the things we realized is we're not the best operators. We were good operators, but then we kind of grew out of that role and we stopped enjoying the day to day operations. So that's what we're now blessed to be on the money side. where we can kind of work with great operators and invest with them, whether it's through hard money or syndication or whatever it is. So that's the part I enjoy, meeting new people, networking, being out there, looking at what's going on in the market cycles, that kind of stuff.
So it's amazing because you guys learned, right, by doing, and then everyone thinks they're just going to jump in and start at the highest level possible. And it's like parenting. You start from the very beginning and you learn what you're good at, what you're not good at being
as an
entrepreneur.
Works too, as the couple. You see what works, what doesn't. And you know, it's important to notice that and be aware of that. You know, even when we criticize each other, you know, it can be very difficult on some people. But at the same time, it's like, well, okay, let's look at myself and let's do some, you know, major reflection on what are you saying exactly? Is that true? And how can I better myself? Instead of, I can't believe you said that.
Well, Ray, I want to hear a story from you. What else did you guys struggle about when you first started out, other than getting locked in the bathroom?
I think one of the biggest struggles that I struggle with personally is I had more of the entrepreneur, not more of an entrepreneur, but I was okay with not making any money for months, and then having, you know, the especially when you're starting out, no money, big money, no money, right? The season of that. And because I had built up some reserves, I had that, and it had been a long time since I was used to getting a steady paycheck. But for her, my angel, making the transition, I thought, you know, God, I could help her, like instead of the business, could help her, you know, but I want her to get this muscle herself of like, hey, we're an entrepreneur. Now we get paid off what we produce. So I didn't realize how bad she was struggling. And now in hindsight, she'll say it was the best thing that I could have done for her. But during that, it was really rough on the relationship. It was rough on me. It was rough on her. And then ultimately we just, you know, the company put her on payroll, and it just made life a lot easier because she didn't work well under that. Not right or wrong. It's just, that's not that, you know.
Yeah. That's awesome that we could, you know, encourage each other and see their potential, like you're saying, and help them grow.
The best way I could say that is, you know, those 6 human needs, Tony Robbins, her need for security was a lot higher than mine. Yeah. And we went to a date with Destiny in Australia. And then I said, oh crap, her need for security is way up there. So if that need's not met, everything else doesn't work. Yeah. Whereas my need for security was, you know what I mean?
Yes.
We'll figure it out. Right. So
So how did when you started working together, and, you know, even coming up till now, how did your actual marriage, your relationship grow? How did it change?
Well, it was a little intense because we started the business, we started working together, and we moved in at the same time.
Oh, wow.
So it was like an extra layer. I lived with my mom and my grandma, so everything was very peaceful, very calm. Then it's like, okay, now I'm going to go live with a boy and we're going to go work together. So it was just pretty chaotic.
And the office was in the condo, remember, on the beach.
So together.
We worked from home in our 1-bedroom apartment. So it was just an intense, just, okay, let's just see what happens kind of thing. But we did, obviously, like, we had certain things already in place. Like, I had my savings pretty, well, I thought was a good cushion, ended up not being that great cushion, but we did plan for it. Like, it wasn't just crazy, like, let's go do this. Like, it was a very thought out and yet very out of our comfort zone. So it was that balance of both, like being able to say, okay, we don't know how this is going to go, but, you know, all our eggs are in this basket and we're both all in. And we had those hard conversations at the beginning of saying, no matter what, we're going to, you know, do this. And one of the things for me that was huge was I put in my resignation letter. I didn't take a leave of absence, which is what everybody was telling me to do. It was like, oh, just take a leave of absence, see what happens. You never know. You've got your benefits, like all this. And it was like, he didn't tell me to do this, but I went to him and I said, look, I'm all in, like, I'm quitting. Like, what
made you, well, when was that moment where you decided I'm leaving this career?
Because you haven't mentioned, she hasn't brought this up, but I want to bring this up for her. And I don't know if it's it, but I felt a change in her. So we went on this trip, her and I, and we hadn't done it. She hadn't started working yet. Like, she had some interest, and she did like a little MLM thing with ACN. And she said, I go, babe, we could do this MLM, but I've already paid the 10,000 hours in real estate. So whatever effort we put in there, it's going to go much faster, baby. So we went on this like 30-day, 25-day vacation in Australia. that was a big investment in those days because Australia was, the currency and everything else. And then she saw that that ultimately the business and I paid for it, right? 'Cause at that point we were together, but not like that. And I think from there she's like, this is I think, and I don't know what happened. I don't want to speak for her, but I think seeing her outside in, she said, we went to like 4 different cities. We stayed in really nice hotels. We went to Date with Destiny. She goes, this is just not possible on a teacher's. So you have an expanded desire. Like once you, we live in a very nice condo now. We have this house and then a condo on the beach. And I think that once you have an expanded experience, meaning like you guys come from up north and you live down here for a month.
Yeah.
It's hard to not, and then if your soul wants that, okay, it's hard to take that back from someone once you have an experience of something that your soul wants. So maybe you could speak a little bit of that. I know I'm off there.
It's nice to see the other person's experience on watching the other person kind of grow and change. I love that.
Yeah, I think it was multiple things, but definitely the Day with Destiny 6-day experience with Tony Robbins was just blew the lid off everything.
But also the whole Australia trip.
But definitely that it was already starting to feel like, oh wait, he can do whatever he wants whenever he wants. That freedom piece, that piece of, like you said, like that responsibility of I'm responsible for what I produce and how I show up. And he was doing that in his business. And for me, it was, okay, well, I've got to follow these guidelines. I have to follow these rules. I can only teach certain things that they let me teach. It just started there was a lot of comparing and contrasting going on throughout those first 3 years where I was teaching and he was, in real estate. And it just seeing those two things, I started to open my eyes to what was possible or what else was possible.
Exactly.
So what's important that you did, I think everyone should listen to this. Christy didn't say, I'm going to put my foot in the water. She jumped in the water. She burned the ships. So there's no going back, because if you just put in, what did you say? You didn't put your resignation in. You put in, what was it?
I did resignation versus the leave of absence.
I'm sorry. I'm sure you didn't put it. Yeah. If you'd put your leave of absence in, and then at the first pothole you hit on the road, you're like, you know what? I'm going to go back to my job. And that's what everyone makes a mistake on. If you're going to do real estate,
you hold on to it. Right?
You're going to do multifamily. You've got to go all in.
Absolutely.
Maybe that is quitting your job. Maybe that is like me moving down to Jacksonville, moving into a market. Maybe that's leaving the restaurant. Whatever it is, you have to convince it's about your subconscious. If you're not all in and you have a leave of absence versus a resignation, that's telling yourself, you know what, I don't think I can do it. But the resignation is you're going to become really creative. You're going to figure it out. And then ultimately, if you don't, you can still go back to teaching. That's the funny part. I can go back and move back to New York if I didn't like Florida. So we just trick ourselves and put this fear into it. You can go back and teach tomorrow. It's not, but we just shortchange ourselves. And I'm glad you went on that trip, because that really makes a big difference. And that was the same thing for me, as far as the real estate, what it allowed me to do, to be able to take weekends off, to be able to take holidays off, to be able to do all this stuff. And I couldn't do it at the restaurant. Like that's when it accelerated. I really want to get out of this. So I commend you for that.
What real estate I've seen gave you, I've always had it as the mom, but it's that freeing up of the schedule, being able to just take that trip whenever you want. You know what I mean? That to me is huge.
Before we get into where you are with real estate now, having a child, how did that change that dynamic as far as working together?
Everything had changed. And we just got one. It's a shift. It's a big shift. I think it was probably mid-pregnancy where I was just like, I don't like coming to the office and having employees, / having to babysit the employees. And we just, again, agility, he just is very agile when it comes to these things. We just realized that we weren't happy in that one. That we built it up for 6 years. We enjoyed it to the max for 6 years. And then we said, okay, well, now we want to be home and we want to, simplify, and we want to be, parents that we can, if my daughter last week, she was sick, I can pick her up from school and she can hang out with me for 2 days because she's not feeling well. And that became a priority. There was the whole grind period where it was all learn, we're all in, there's no, it was 24/7.
It was weekends.
It was weekends. Yeah. It was all of it, but it was just us two. So it was fine. But once I became pregnant and especially after the baby, that's when we started selling off the rental portfolio. And we started saying, okay, this isn't making us happy anymore. And that's another thing we talk about with just having that, being okay with change. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't making us happy. And once I'm not happy somewhere, I don't show up as my best self, and for Ray as well. And I wanted to show up as the best mom I could show up as, and I wasn't showing up as a good employer, as a good, landlord. Like it was just not working. So once we started to feel that, it was just like, okay, well, this isn't working. So what are we going to do next?
And for me, what it did is when she stepped out, I thought it was going to be like, I thought she was going to kind of be there most of the pregnancy and like be there. But like 2 or 3 months in, really, her mind was on baby and not the business. And she used to be the buffer for me between me and the team. So I could still be the visionary, but she was more the integrator and talk to the team. So I had some interaction with the team, but not so much. So I enjoyed my role more. But once she kind of stepped out and I had to be day to day with the team, and it just wasn't working as well. And then now, because she was exiting, now I had taken on the role of being the visionary as well as the integrator for the business. So now, it was just much more taxing on me, and it wasn't enjoyable. And I felt like that first year of my daughter being born, like I missed that. And it was really outside of the first year or two of her starting, that was the hardest year ever of our relationship. And then it wasn't me that was flexible, because I had my identity, Gino, tied up into I'm a fix and flipper. I have a business, like it was, and we were making money. So she was the one that said, Ray, pull the plug, sell everything, fire everybody. And it took me.
Didn't say fire everybody. Let's relocate everybody.
Yeah,
that's what he heard. That's what he heard.
No, but we did. We helped them find a lot of them. I was able to connect them with other people. And it took me longer because it took me a while to do that. And I wish I would have listened earlier, but ultimately we did that. I did a few more deals on my own. And then, even till now, we have one more deal we're closing tomorrow. But from the moment that happened, we closed the office, we did a few more deals, and then we started getting into the lending. And for us, the lending has given us the most of what we want, which was consistent monthly cash flow without being day-to-day in the operations. Because what we wanted was cash flow that was consistent. And that didn't take up too much of our time. And once you do a hard money loan and you do a good loan with somebody that's good, the money comes in, right? So, and it freed up our time. Does it take some time? Sure. But so far, given this stage of our life, it's been one of the best vehicles for us to get that consistent monthly cash flow. Now, we're not going to grow the balance sheet to Uber time, whatever, but we didn't need to. We just wanted the cash flow to cover our monthly expenses so we could spend more time doing what we want to do.
Mm-hmm. Let's take a break to hear from our sponsors.
Gino, I know a lot of our listeners are wanting to take their multifamily investing business to the next level. I know that you've been hard at work helping Jake and Gino students do just that using our framework. Can you explain to the listeners how they can get our help?
Guys, we've been hard at work growing our community of like-minded investors, and the results of our members has been nothing short of incredible. We're looking to grow this amazing group. What we're looking for is those who want to follow our proprietary framework that we've created. Buy right, manage right, and finance right. Leverage our connections, education, and mentorship as ways to take your business to the next level.
So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become a part of our amazing community, apply to work with us at jakeandgino.com/apply.
So you guys are getting into the hard money. What goals do you have going forward the next 3 to 5 years in the real estate space?
That's something that we're exploring. So I'm testing out raising capital on the equity side. So I just did a deal with one of your coaches, Bill. He's a partner of us on 60 units. And this is the first time I've had to go out and raise equity. Usually we're used to just cutting that check ourselves, right? Because when we built up the 100 units here locally, we would get the financing and do it in-house. So me, her, and God would do it, right? But now that she's pulled out, I said, well, what am I good at? Well, I'm good at connecting with people. I'm wondering if I'm good at raising money. And so far, for our first time at raising money, I've raised close to $1 million without having any real, obviously got the network from the past and everything else. So I'm really grateful for that. And we'll see how that goes. We're going to continue to place the hard money because we like it. And at this point for her and I, it's we're going to have this talk tomorrow is, do we actually want to go ahead and hire people and staff and operations remotely? See, my vision, and this, we haven't talked about this yet, but my vision in the past was, hey, if I want to build a business, I need a formal brick and mortar like we did in the last time. And that was preventing me from going out and hiring people and staff. But now I'm not willing to do that. I'm not willing to go to an office. I want to work from home. I want to spend time with my daughter. And if I have to pay more for a quality employee that I can find on one of these virtual things, and it means I have to learn how to do that, I will. And the hard money thing that I want to do, I just don't want to do a lot of the other little things. So if I can bring in some help, we both need some help as we look to grow, because the smaller tasks that we're out of the stage of beginning something new. We know it works now at this point, and we have systems. Do we want to bring somebody in? Yes or no, or just outsource it altogether? I think we want to bring somebody in, and then being more on the passive side, looking to do other opportunities, whether it's invest in other people's syndications or invest in distressed debt, where somebody else is being the operator, but we know the operations, we know what they're doing, we understand it. So becoming a professional passive investor, as well as becoming active in the hard money space.
So Christy, what do you think? Because you haven't had the conversation yet. So it sounds like he's had it really mapped out and he's got the vision, but I'd like to hear your vision.
Well, he just spent a week on his own traveling, and he had his alone time. I just came back from Disney, so I'm like, I want to sleep. I think that for me, the biggest thing is like having that clarity, like whatever it is, like getting really clear is so important to us. And that's why he said, like, we haven't really talked about it, because we are kind of in that next phase of figuring things out. And we're seeing, like, you know, we're testing different avenues.
We're in the discovery phase.
Right. And also for me, like I know, I mean, it's definitely like different 6 kids versus 1 kid, but I definitely want to be more mobile. I want to be able to go live in I've never left Miami, so I've always wanted to go live in other places. I would love to homeschool her and be able to travel the country.
I was thinking about adding another one.
Let me tell you something. It's like multifamily properties. The first one's hard. The second one, you're doubting yourself. The third one, this is a pretty good thing. By the time you do the fourth one, it's like, and I said, the only difference is multifamily puts money in your pocket. Kids take money out of your pocket.
It out. Yeah.
Until they get to be, teenagers or older, and they start working with you, then it comes full circle. It's like, okay.
I don't think you expected that, right?
No, I did not expect that.
Oh, that's awesome.
What tips can you give the listeners about working with your spouse? Your first one was great. I like the full profile. There's DISC out there. We're doing something called the flow profile, which is awesome because it talks about your dynamo energy. It talks about your steel energy. It talks about
wealth dynamics.
We did that.
Yeah. Is that? Yeah. Oh, yes. I think
Wealth
yes.
dynamics.
That is really detailed.
Hamilton, yeah.
Yes, because the problem with strength finders is just because you're strong at something doesn't mean your energy flows there. Right. And I thought that was wow, because I'm really good at grinding things out, but that's not where I get my energy from. And, we did the event, right? And the event, I don't have dynamo energy, but I can turn it on. But then by the time it's over, it just sucks the life out of me. And I need to go away for a few days. So that's awesome. I love that. So that's a great tip. Finding out what your strengths are, what you love, what resonates with you, where you get your energy from. What other tips would you give the listeners about working together?
I think you said, one of you mentioned this word that I love, responsibility, like being responsible for how you show up, for your energy, for how you, like you said, like he can criticize. I can call it criticism when he criticizes me, or I can call it constructive feedback, or I can call it, I can call it something different, and how I take what he tells me is my responsibility. That doesn't mean that I'm not able to say, look, I don't appreciate when you speak to me that way, but it's still my responsibility for what I make things mean, for how I show up, for how I take care of myself, for like all these different things that people often, or in the past, I'll speak for myself, used to,
it's more common than you think.
Like blame others, or be the victim in this scenario, or why does this happen? Like life is always happening for me, and it serves me. So it's whatever it is, whether it's a flat tire, whether it's a sick 3-year-old, whether it's a 60 unit, whatever it is, I'm attracting it. And I'm taking that responsibility for your life and for everything in it, the good and the bad. It really helps you show up to your relationship at a much higher level, which is what we see with couples nowadays. Like if only that person would do that, then I'd be, better. Or if that person would help me a little bit more. Okay, well then ask for the help. Or if that person would support me, well, enroll them in a different way. Like take the responsibility, because it takes the pressure off. It helps you just show up at a much higher level than just saying, oh, well, when he does that, then I'll be. So I think
it's easy to say all those things, right? Because we're making excuses why I didn't take action, or why I didn't perform the way I did, because it's your fault. You know what I mean? So it's so easy for us to blame everyone else for everything we do.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's something very similar to responsibility, and just the way I'm perceiving, right?
Mm-hmm.
Normally when there's something I'm upset with her, or she says something to me, it's something in me that's being triggered that she's just serving as a trigger for. So really it's, okay, there's something within me taking responsibility and having her serve as my ultimate personal development tool, right? That's what she is, and that's what I am for her. So saying, okay, let's dig deeper here. But a lot of times we as humans don't want to do that and look inward, because it's something that your mom or a parent put in there that you don't want to bring up.
Yeah.
But it's really your own stuff. And then if we can both get into the habit of being open and vulnerable and looking inward, right? That really opens that up. And I think the second thing is alignment. Like, I might be saying, even with this deal and stuff that's going on, hey babe, listen, I'm going to go on the road. I'm going to raise capital. This might be a little bit messy because I haven't done it before. Like, give me the freedom. You know, I might not be as much of the family a little bit. There's going to be some sacrifices here and there, and I'm going to be traveling often just to expand this. And I think there's something else here we could do. So the first thing she's probably asking herself is, am I okay with that? Am I enrolled with that? Right? Is she on board? So I'm looking first for, okay, I'm gonna emotionally bankroll you, meaning I'm not gonna get involved, but I'll support you, so that she understands, okay, he's a little bit under stress. She's giving me some compassion because he's learning something new, and she's understanding, okay, he's gonna be turned up for a little bit. That's one, get him enrolled in the vision. And then two, like, have her hold me, like, if I told her, hey baby, I'm gonna go out there and manage a 60-unit building, she would have said, no, that is not in your unique ability. You're not gonna enjoy that. But this other stuff, raising money, you're already good at mitigating risk. You're already good with people. Like, that's up your alley. You haven't done that before, but you've done a whole bunch of things that are like that. Let's do that one. So, and if she told me, hey, Ray, I'm going to go out there and, you know, speak on stages and do these things that are way out of my comfort zone. Like, I know that's not her thing, but if she goes, hey, I'm going to write a book, baby, how do I support you? What can I take off your plate so that, hey, do you want to go to the seminar? Okay, I'll take Valentina. So support each other and be each other's biggest fan, and make sure that whatever she's doing is in her unique ability. Because sometimes we'll do something that is outside our unique ability, and not that we couldn't do it, but it's just going to be a struggle. And at this point, when she said earlier about the teachers are okay in survival. We want to be thriving, and those two energies are very different, right? What kind of like Gino, when I heard your podcast about one's catabolic, one's anabolic. Thriving is anabolic, right? And surviving is catabolic, and they're not even in the same realm. Like, they're not even the same vibrational frequency.
Ray, you can't use those words because my wife doesn't like those words. That's my life question.
My eyes glaze.
I just did too. I'm like,
dude, those are powerful words, man.
I have to get all his sheets and actually write down my own words because I just don't understand.
She's just destroying everything that I've learned. She's deconstructing it. You know what I'm saying?
I'm putting it in simple terms.
I like the mousetrap. Don't build it over for me. The mousetrap works good for me. I catch a lot of mice.
Yours. I'm just adding to it.
Yes.
You know?
I want to recap this because there's a lot of lots to recap, and then we'll talk about your information, how people get a hold of you. First thing I took away, honestly, is desperation, inspiration, and perspiration. I don't think you need to be, but when we're driven by desperation, wanting to change, and then all of a sudden we get inspired, we need to put in the hard work. I call it the Holy Trinity, right? Work hard, work with passion, work hard, then, work smart and work with passion. Those are the three you need. And if you can work with passion, that's the third one. That's how you're going to find fulfillment. The next one is the limiting beliefs. Everyone has limiting beliefs out there. Explore them. And if you're with people who have limiting beliefs around you, try to start hanging out with people who don't have limiting beliefs.
Absolutely.
The next one is burn the ships. If you're going to do something, burn those ships and don't look back. And there's always another plan. Have the pros and cons of doing it. And then if it doesn't work, don't be afraid. We've all made mistakes. It's okay. It's your ego that's holding you back and saying, I don't want to make a mistake. I'd go back to New York tomorrow if I failed. I mean, at least I tried. Most people are not willing to try because they're not willing to fail. We didn't talk about the 5 love languages because my wife loves that. But I mean, obviously how you communicate, you guys communicate really well. You probably know my wife loves the little gifts and like a little service. So it took me 47 years to figure that out, but it's okay. I learned. It took me a little while. So I think that's important.
I knew you would eventually figure it out.
Eventually, yeah. So that's something I think as couples we need to figure out,
Yep.
how each one of us responds.
Mhm.
There's so many, and the tips you gave are really awesome. Supporting each other, that's just like a given, but really support each other. I mean, like when you're having a rough day, I don't need to be criticized today, maybe tomorrow. So just figure that out and support each other.
Well, no, that's excellent, Gino. I just want to also just thank you for just being that couple out there that's working together, because a lot of people do struggle with the idea of it. And I think just us being on the podcast, maybe we'll just maybe encourage somebody to maybe reconsider it, because there are so many benefits of it. The trust, the compassion, like you were talking about. But it's also so important just to be aware of each other, like you were saying, being aware of what my strengths are, what my weaknesses are, and they do change, and that's pretty neat too. Because over the years, my husband, what he does now, we wouldn't have been able to do, maybe 5 years ago, no way. And so that's kind of exciting to watch the person and encourage them that growth. So maybe your wife will be on stage sometime soon.
Definitely do.
You know what I mean? And
I believe so.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing, Julia, that doesn't get mentioned as working together is the amount of growth that happens together. We go to events together. We read the same books, not all the time, but like we're always growing together. So like, Thrive, we had Cohada. We went together to that event. We went together to Tony Robbins. We go together to events, and to your event. We went together. She was there with me, supporting me emotionally, but she was running her book while I was at the event, right? So
and so if you weren't working together, it would have been a little awkward. You know what I mean? It's like, I'll come, but I don't know anything about anything you're doing. I mean, I'm not into real estate at all, but somehow I figured out how to work with him.
She loves real estate. Though. She loves it, right? So.
No, and the biggest thing that no one talks about that I'm really passionate about, Gino and Julia, is how your money habits or your money values start to get aligned, because she had a different idea of money when we first started. So did I. And then what's happened all of a sudden is I don't have to check what she spends money on. She doesn't check what I spend money on. And in giving, we want to give to, I saw you had a podcast on charity, so we want to give to that. I didn't send me the link to the Rand Cares, please.
Yes.
I wasn't able to find it online. But like in terms of how we spend money and how we invest in our joy and how we give to charity, like we don't have to check with each other because the value of what we both value is very aligned. Like we're not going to, and that happened because of us growing together.
Exactly.
She needed to grow in some areas on the money side, and so did I.
Yeah. And you'll keep growing. You'll keep changing. And that's the awesome thing. And that's why you'll do it together. And I love it. I love that.
How can the listeners get a hold of you?
So you can go to bothonboard.com, and there's all of our information is there. info@bothonboard.com is our email address. You can email us there. We have a complimentary conversation Calendly link that we can just connect and see how we can serve. Right now we're at a place where we just want to, give back and contribute in any way that we can, in helping, couples get on board with each other and do it in a way where they can enjoy the ride. So that's just our way of kind of giving back. We can have conversations. We can, point people in the right direction or whatever needs to be done. But
listen to the podcast
and
too.
Definitely the podcast. There's plenty of nuggets in there to all the stuff we've learned throughout the years. We've got about 30 episodes, I think it is. We're in 31. We started it in May, and it's been fun to do a weekly podcast episode.
So Ray, Christy keeps saying that she's the back of the bus and all that kind of stuff. She just threw the pitch right there. I mean, she just threw out all the credentials and everything. So I'm just saying, you know what I mean? I think I think she's gonna be on stage a lot sooner than you think. You know what I'm saying?
But I've realized that in the podcast scene, she's a star of the show. So I've learned. See, but the old me would have got my ego. No, this is her thing. I'm just playing second fiddle. But it took a lot of emotional and personal growth for me to step back like that. But if I'm always shining, she doesn't give her room to shine, and she's brilliant.
Thanks, guys, for being on. We could talk for like hours, so we'll probably definitely connect off. But I just want to thank all the listeners for listening. If you like the show, it would be great if you could leave us a review on the show. Please check out Ray and Christy's podcast, Awesome, because it sounds like a great show. So next time, we'll see y'all. Thanks.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you.
You.